Don't miss our content, subscribe our channel and visit our website, where you can easily access our videos and articles. Many styles of techno now exist, but Detroit techno is seen as the foundation upon which a number of subgenres have been built. The initial blueprint for techno developed during the mid-1980s in Belleville, Michigan, a suburb of Detroit, by Juan Atkins, Kevin Saunderson and Derek May, known today as the Belleville Three. All of whom attended school together at Belleville High, with the addition of Eddie Fowlkes, Blake Baxter, and James Pennington. Efforts to regress further into the past, in search of earlier antecedents, entails a further regression to the sequenced electronic music of Raymond Scott. The popularity of Eurodisco and Italo disco, referred to as progressive in Detroit and the Detroit high school party scene from which techno emerged, has prompted a number of commentators to try to redefine the origins of techno by incorporating musical precursors to the Detroit sound as part of a wider historical survey of the genre's development. The search for a mythical first techno record leads to consider music from long before the 1988 naming of the genre. Aside from the artists whose music was popular in the Detroit high school scene, progressive disco acts such as Giorgio Moroder, Alexander Robotnik, and Claudio Simonetti, and synth-pop artists such as Visage, New Order, Depeche Mode, The Human League, and Heaven 17.
There was a day we were together all the way, an endless path.
His use of synthesizers introduced the electronic sound to the musical mainstream. Another example is a record entitled Love in C Minor, released in 1976 by Parisian Eurodisco producer Jean-Marc Cheroni, cited as the first so-called conceptual disco production, and the record from which house, techno, and other underground dance music styles flowed. The electrifying Mojo. One of the most enigmatic radio disc jockeys in history. Never appearing in public, Mojo's playlist picks for his Detroit radio show helped put all the pieces into place for techno's creation. Mojo played everything.
You know what? I think I want to hang up right now.
Crucially, he was very important in the introduction of new music to the public, and it was determinant in the popularity of Kraftwerk. As the original sound evolved in the late 1980s and early 1990s, it also diverged to such an extent that a wide spectrum of stylistically distinct music was being referred to as techno. The Birmingham-based label Network Records label was instrumental in introducing Detroit techno to British audiences. By the early 1990s, the original techno sound had garnered a large underground following in the United Kingdom, Germany, the Netherlands and Belgium. The growth of techno's popularity in Europe between 1988 and 1992 was largely due to the emergence of the rave scene and a thriving club culture. After the Berlin Wall fell on November 9, 1989, free underground techno parties mushroomed in East Berlin, and a rave scene comparable to that in the UK was established. In America, apart from regional scenes in Detroit, New York City, Chicago, and Orlando, interest was limited. producers from Detroit, frustrated by the lack of opportunity in their home country, looked to Europe for their future livelihood.
It's kind of started happening in Chicago first before Detroit because we didn't have any support from radio. You know, we didn't have mixers. I mean, they had like 5 mixers on the radio in Chicago. We didn't have anybody. So we would actually drive to Chicago just to hear mix shows and hear the music. And No UFOs was like the only domestic record that was played on the program. You know, I mean, at that time, wasn't a lot of dance music in America. So, you know, they rely heavily on import.
This first wave of Detroit expatriates was soon joined by a number of up-and-coming artists, the so-called second wave, including Carl Craig, Active One, Jay Denham, Kenny Larkin, Stacey Pullen, Jeff Mills, Mike Banks, and Robert Hood, pushing their own unique sound. A number of New York producers were also making an impression at this time, notably Frankie Bones, Lenny D, and Joey Beltran. Developments in American-produced techno between 1990 and 1992 fueled the expansion and eventual divergence of techno in Europe, particularly in Germany. In Berlin, following the closure of a free party venue called UFO, the club Dresser opened in 1991. The venue was for a time the standard-bearer for techno and played host to many of the leading Detroit producers, some of whom relocated to Berlin. The Berlin techno scene centered itself around 3 locations close to the foundations of the Berlin Wall, Planet, later renamed Die Work by Paul van Dyck, Der Bunker, and the relatively long-lived Dresser. In the same period, German DJs began intensifying the speed and abrasiveness of the sound, as an acid-infused techno began transmuting into hardcore. DJ Tannik commented at the time that Berlin was always hardcore, hardcore hippie, hardcore punk, and now we have a very hardcore house sound. Changes were also taking place in Frankfurt during the same period, but it did not share the egalitarian approach found in the Berlin party scene. It was instead very much centered around discotheques and existing arrangements with various club owners. In 1988, after the Omen opened, the Frankfurt dance music scene was allegedly dominated by the club's management, and they made it difficult for other promoters to get the start. By the early 1990s, Sven Vath had become perhaps the first DJ in Germany to be worshipped like a rock star. He performed center stage with his fans facing him, and as co-owner of Omen, he is believed to have been the first techno DJ to run his own club.
Natürlich, die Musik ist nach wie vor und die Veranstaltung war immer Kern, ja, von Cocoon, und daran hat sich bis heute nichts geändert. Dass wir natürlich da so eine Nische so prominent besetzt haben und uns auch behauptet haben über 20 Jahre, was ja wirklich, wie gesagt, ja schon eine tolle Zahl ist, und wie wir uns aufgestellt haben, und mit viel Liebe, Fleiß.
One of the few real alternatives then was the Brackenkopf in Mainz, underneath the Rhine Bridge, a venue that offered a non-commercial alternative to Frankfurt's discotheque-based clubs. Other notable underground parties were those run by Force Incorporated Music Works and Ada and Heiko from Playhouse Records. By 1992, DJ Dag and Torsten Fenslaw were running a Sunday morning session at Dorian Gray, a plush discotheque near the Frankfurt airport. They initially played a mix of different styles, including Belgian New Beat, Deep House, Chicago House, and synthpop such as Kraftwerk and Yellow, and it was out of this blend of styles that the Frankfurt trance scene is believed to have emerged. In 1993-94, rave became a mainstream music phenomenon in Germany, seeing with it a return to melody, new age elements, insistently kitsch harmonies and timbres. By 1993, as interest in techno in the UK club scene started to wane, Berlin was considered the unofficial techno capital of Europe. Today its major stars, from Richie Houghton to Carl Cox, headline festivals all over the world, and the sound has been borrowed by stadium-filling rock and pop acts. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe the channel.